So the Brittany blog was originally envisaged as just one episode, so I really wasn't expecting to be all Revenge of the Sith with all this, and yet here we are on episode 3. So this is to cover the territorial anomaly that is Mont Saint-Michel, which, while plonked on the border of the two regions, is firmly in Normandy. And if you think I wouldn't make a video just because one of the destinations is slightly outside the parameters of the last video, well, how little you know me. But besides, Mont Saint-Michel, which I'm now abbreviating to Mont St for time, is a pretty unique location. I remember looking up at a huge A1 poster of it in my high school French classroom and thinking I'd like to go see it one day. But moreover, I was actually a little bit confused. So, bit of a backstory. We rarely, if ever, had foreign holidays when I was growing up, which might explain my enthusiasm for them now. But when we did, what we did was like a sort of Cornwall for a week in a caravan type holidays. And bafflingly, Cornwall has a sort of copy of this, which we visited. This was years ago, so I'm having to borrow a photo here. This is St Michael's Mount on the south coast of Cornwall. So why the two? Yeah, I think this merits a quick history catch-up. So Mont Saint, the French one, is a fortress and abbey set on a tidal island. The island is made up of granite that eroded less quickly than the land around it when the sea was rising, leaving it sticking up slightly higher. It probably won't surprise you to learn that this wasn't built all at once. Following the collapse of Rome, it was used as a stronghold of the local Armorican tribes against the many invaders tramping through France. Defensible stone outcroppings away from the shore, really peak real estate when Rome fell. See also Corfu Old Fortress and Dubrovnik. But anyway, the Franks yoinked it soon anyway. A monastery was built there in about the 700s, but, think way smaller. It briefly came into the Kingdom of Brittany in the time after Charlemagne when the Franks were getting pummeled by the Vikings, but about 66 years later, those same Vikings had been gifted the land we now call Normandy to make the beating stop, and they just yoinked Mont Saint right back, and ever since it was a possession of Normandy. It actually gets a shout out on the Bayeux Tapestry, and after the monastery gave its support to William the Conqueror's claim to the throne of England, he was like, hey, cheers, have some land, including this other rocky bit of island, which is kind of like the one that you already have. And so that's how we ended up with two tidal islands, both in the English Channel, being with churches atop, both being called St Michael's Mount in their respective languages. Feels like they're only reducing their own revenues by franchising them out like McDonald's, but hey. More impressive building works of the abbey would follow, but more than a church, the island was also a remarkably defensible spot. It managed to withstand the entire English army having a crack at it twice, both in 1423 and again in 1433 during the 100 Years' War. Anyway, so I was really buzzing to be here. It's such an iconic place. If the outline looks kind of familiar, it served as the inspiration for the design of Minas Tirith in Lord of the Rings. Now, when I'm not turning these travel blogs into lengthy history lectures, I do want to actually include some useful information, and I remembered from St Michael's Mount, that's the Cornwall one, that you had to watch when the tides were coming in and out, and you couldn't just stroll over there twirling a cane anytime you like. Now, Mont Saint doesn't have this same problem exactly, at least not anymore. They built a dike that allows people to access the island even when the tide is in. The exception being about 6 tides a year, which are anomalously high and submerge this dike entirely, making Mont Saint once again an island. So yeah, you might just want to double check that by the complete fluke that you were trying to go on one of the days of these super tides. This is the site you need, and it's there in the comments as well. Just bear in mind, there are tours where you can walk along the tidal sands, just like the medieval pilgrims used to, but don't go thinking that you can just wander out there on the sands yourself. You would be surprised how many medieval pilgrims died out there. I mean, I am the king of, hey look, it's not that far, we can walk it, but I wasn't exaggerating. Amongst other things, there is actual quicksand, and the tide comes in itself at quite a pace. It's been measured before about 6 kilometers an hour. You can kind of see it coming in from the ramparts. So yeah, don't go wandering out there without a guide. You don't want to become a statistic. Okay, so assuming you've parked up like everyone else, you're presented with 2.5 choices. You can either walk there, or there's in fact several shuttle buses that go back and forth all day. The third choice is to get pulled there by horses, but can we just all agree how needless this is? These horses are not happy. I mean, actually riding a horse there would be cool, but just having a horse pull 20 of you in a heavy cart, there's less than no point. Some heartless bastards even got their dog to pull the cart. Boo! The correct answer here is obviously walk, because the main attraction is in the approach, having time to drink in the view fully as you get closer. So for example, my mum was having a little difficulty walking this holiday from her joints, so of course any mobility issues, take the shuttle. Yeah, perfect. But otherwise, why would you? It's about half an hour, maybe 40 minutes from the car park. Why would you opt to cheat yourself out of the view? I mean, it was a beautiful day and I was loving every minute. So the island isn't just a tourist site, it does have about 50 residents, though I really don't envy them with the number of people that came through every day. We headed up the stairs pretty soon after stepping through the gate. If you duck right and then follow the route up to the left when you get in. It's a few more steps, but fewer people. We headed to the top. So far, by the way, all of this has been free if you hadn't gathered. Now, the chapel at the top itself is 10 euros in. This was one of the first and only times on this particular holiday where we'd really encountered a crush of people, but, you know, even so, it's not a huge deal breaker. So there's lots of nice views on the way up and bits of info if you want to stop every so often. A lot of people carrying around the audio guide, like as a phone. You can do that if you like. The main chapel on the top is impressive, but in some places it's actually remarkably plain. I don't know if it always looked like this since medieval times or if some restoration has altered the character, but I mean, the inside isn't exactly the experience of a lifetime. The views, though, they were really great. The cloister's really nice, though a bit crowded. I've barely got any footage. I've kind of got into the habit, if I can't frame the people out, I don't really bother filming. You can keep winding on through a bewildering maze of staircases and chambers of differing antiquity. The lower down you go, the older it gets, and the light also becomes less and less amenable to photography. And then exit through the gift shop and down through the gardens, and you are done. Well, done with the main chapel bit anyway. We walked along the east ramparts, craving some shade on what was a really hot day. There's some cafes. They aren't cheap, but at least because there's several of them, they can't be completely monopolistic, so you can grab a snack like a crepe or similar for something downward of enough, like €5. Expect the cafe owners to be fairly rude and force you to move so they can jam more people next to you. I mean, it's pragmatic, but it's a very efficient way of pissing off just about anyone who sits down in your cafe. So we were heading back across the dike at this point, and since the wide-angle view is one of the best things about Mont Saint, you might be tempted to look for, I don't know, like a restaurant in the evening, to watch the sunset. It seems like a fair plan. Oh boy. As far as restaurants go, prime position is occupied by this place, but if you were considering it, go look at the reviews. It's almost funny how little this place apparently cares. This is the problem with food establishments set in beautiful locations. I have a hypothesis on this. When it comes to food, and particularly coffee, the quality of your refreshments are inversely proportional to the quality of the view. I feel like maybe I should name this theory after myself. Like, I don't know, maybe. The Forest Jungle Collective law of food to landscape qualitative ratio. I see it pretty much all the time at home. In Bournemouth, for example, on the beach, the cafes are pretty much crumbling relics from the 60s with no imagination for design and coffee that makes Asda Price look like a gourmet novelty. This happens all over the place. Lulworth Cove, lovely view, coffee there, kind of sucks. Coffee Saloon, view, kind of non-existent. Coffee, proof that there is a loving God and the cosmos are more than a dark void without compassion. There are obviously outliers to this data set, like any correlation, but look, you can see what's going on here. When this is the view out of your window, you basically just build it and they will come. And they will come without bothering to check the Google reviews and find out the customer satisfaction is at levels comparable to Fukushima. And it's not just this one bad apple. There's other cafes along the edge of the tidal sands that have the view as well, but pretty much all are test cases for the concept of buyer beware. So yes, if you want to have dinner within view of Mont Saint, my suggestion, get a picnic. Probably from the town of Pont-à-Sauron on your way in, because guess what, there isn't exactly a supermarket in the visitor centre. Okay, so I promised this would be short, so we are stopping here. But if you're in the mood for more land masses in the English Channel, then next time we're heading to the Channel Islands, beginning with Guernsey. Meanwhile, even though this is a quick one, with every video we make, we release an EP or a track inspired by the location, and that's what you've been hearing in the background. So head to Bandcamp and help us out by downloading a track or several tracks from our catalogue. Hope this info has been useful. You might have gathered already, this is actually a coda to our guide to Brittany, so check that out if you haven't already, and we'll be back very soon.